this is old Bilbo Baggins for the close-ups, gilding lots of rooms. Again, is another illustration that I copied from Tolkien, Dahi Bay, up in the corner. The ring stuff, I just worked in the back.
Very nice to meet you.
You too. This is awesome.
Just keep in mind, my English is it's not my first language, so sometimes I might not be able to explain myself so well. So if there is any issue or if you don't understand,
that's a lot better than my Bulgarian, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, when I edit the podcast, sometimes I listen to me. I'm like, dude, what are you talking? Guys, welcome back to Calligraphy Masters podcast. Today's episode is super special. I'm super hyped. I've been waiting for this podcast for quite some time. Today's guest is the man behind the calligraphy of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel Reeve.
Millenist, how are you?
I'm great. As I just said, I'm super hyped. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast and to learn more about you and your story, because to be honest, I knew you and your calligraphy for quite some years, but just I don't know, 2, 3, 4 months ago, I learned that you're actually the person behind everything that I just mentioned, and I was like, wow. I mean, I never thought to even think who did the calligraphy in those movies, but
someone had to do it.
Well, we'll speak about this, but a bit later in the podcast. So, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit more about you?
I'm Daniel Reeve. I live in New Zealand. I'm an artist in New Zealand, and I'm hundreds of years old. Just don't even go there. It's truly ancient. But I live in New Zealand, and I can actually show you where I live if because I drew it. Because I drew all the maps in the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
I drew the place where I live in the prologue map of the Lord of the Rings, and you can see it on screen.
Okay, but can we just before we start about the Lord of the Rings, a bit behind story about you,
I'll just show you this, because this is just to show you where I live, and then we'll get back. So this is jumping forward, and then we'll come back.
Fair enough.
Okay, so as you know, I drew this. Wait, here we go. This is with for the benefit of those that are watching this via YouTube, and with apologies to those that are watching audio, that are only listening to it, but I drew the Middle Earth map, which we'll get to later on. And this is very legit. This is straight up as Tolkien drew it. But I also, for the films, drew a prologue map. This one here is the map that appears within the films themselves. I couldn't resist the opportunity to draw my own hometown in it. So if we zoom up to the northwest corner, the Gulf of Loon there, I thought was so similar to Wellington Harbour that I changed the geography, and here for reference is Wellington Harbour in Google Maps. So you can see I've drawn the city. I've drawn where the airport is, the Miramar Peninsula where the films were made, and the Hutt Valley. So I thought I'd better draw where I live, and this is Titahi Bay up in the corner. And I even popped in Mana Island, which is where I do live. So
you live on that small island?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, not on the island, but on the place called Titahi Bay. It's just a little. It's about 20 minutes drive north of of Wellington City. So that's where I live, and that's where I have done all my work. In fact, in the Lord of the Rings, I actually had a job as a computer programmer in a bank, and I was doing the film work while I was still working at the bank. So I was just doing it here at home in the weekends, at nights, and what have you. But anyway, that's further on. Back at the start.
Before we start, I just want to say, like, for those of you guys who are listening, maybe it's best to check the YouTube version of this podcast, because unlike the other podcasts, there will be a lot of images involved in this podcast because of the story of Daniel and because of what he's involved. And yeah, I suggest, if you want to enjoy and to learn the most out of this podcast, check it on YouTube. And before you start, I have a question. You just said you're like hundreds of years, you're like ancient. Are you like something like immortal or vampire?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've been here forever, you know.
Oh my God. All right.
But when I was young, when I was a teenager, I think about 13, my brother read a book called The Hobbit. And he just said, Dan, you got to read this. It's fantastic. So, of course, I read The Hobbit straight after him. And I was busy reading The Hobbit, and already I saw all the runes, and I needed to repeat all the runes and learn how to draw them. And then he went straight on to The Lord of the Rings, and he said, Dan, you got to read this. It's even better. So I read The Lord of the Rings as about 13 or 14 years old. And I read my brother's copy of it, which was a single volume paperback. And I learned through my careful research that this is supposed to be in a 3-part book. So I got a knife and I cut his book into 3 pieces. And I still have it here.
All right.
I pulled all the covers off, and I recovered the book in 3 parts. So this is me as a 13-year-old. I'll show you this in an image on the screen, actually. Doing all the covers, it's all completely falling to bits. But this is me pulling apart his book and doing some calligraphy. I'll show you on the screen.
You want to tell me that your love for calligraphy came because of Lord of the Rings?
Well, partly, yeah. It's there's the covers of the books that I did as a 13-year-old, and I was trying to do some uncial writing that I'd seen on a map of the Lord of the Rings, and I had even before that I had done my decorated all the letters on my school projects and stuff. I'd made 3D lettering. So it does go a long way back, but the Lord of the Rings kind of kicked it over into a different level. And I'm an artist as well as the art. Calligraphy is just a facet of my art. I do calligraphy and art and letter, map making and what have you. So they're all parts of the same thing, but they were with me from a long time ago. So I pulled my brother's book apart and relettered and redrew all the covers, and I've been interested ever since. I do remember always being fascinated with good lettering and how alphabets work, and
are you like self-taught, or have you been attending some classes, workshops, or like how did you learn calligraphy?
Completely self-taught. In fact, right through all the Lord of the Rings stuff, I just worked in a vacuum. I had bought a copy of the Speedball textbook and some calligraphy pens, and I actually upgraded some crappy old calligraphy pens that I bought years before, and I bought, for the Lord of the Rings, I bought some Rotring art pens. You probably know them. Yeah. If you don't, and I did most of the work on the Lord of the Rings with those, only to discover later on that just ordinary old dip pens give a better result. So I haven't used the Rotring ones forever, but so most of the Lord of the Rings is just with the Rotring, but after that I've switched back to just Speedball dip pens.
And you showed the covers there in Unshow. Does this mean that Unshow was the first script you learned?
Well, everyone jumps into black letter as soon as they can, but But Unschill was kind of the thing that set the Lord of the Rings in the kind of time that it was. So that's sort of the next thing I did. The thing that got me the job was I'll show you this. This is I wrote a letter to Peter Jackson, to the film company, because basically this was just down the road from where I live. They're making the film of one of my favorite books. Why don't I see if I can do some work for them? So I sent in this sample here. Here we go.
Were they looking for calligraphers, or you just reached out to them?
Well, I just reached out to them and sent them this sample here of some Elvish, which when I look at it now is pretty terrible. But
what do you mean? This is.
But
no, I don't think it's terrible at all. This is such a lovely. Like, I don't understand anything. Like, is this a actual language or?
Yeah, this is. I won't even try and read it now. It's just The Lord of the Rings, a film made in Wellington by Peter Jackson. It's just a. They never even asked me what it said, but but it got me the job essentially. So I sent that in, and immediately the phone rang, and they said, "Mr. Reeve, come in. We need to talk to you." So I went off in my lunchtime from the bank and went in and saw the people at the film studio, and pretty much came away from that with the job of doing the calligraphy. I think they hadn't really thought about it until I landed in their lap. They had some. Actually, I tell a lie. They did have some other people doing background calligraphy here and there, and then I sort of turned up with my stuff, and they said, "Well, okay, you can do it," and away I went, and just on from there. It was pretty bizarre.
This doesn't sound like very believable. I was expecting to like wow. Like
Yeah,
how old were you at this point?
I must have been 38 or something,
Wow.
I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
so at that point you've had a lot of experience with calligraphy.
Well, not really. I'd drawn the spice labels on my jars, and I promised my wife that I would do the title page in our wedding album, and I still haven't got around to it. And you know, just all the little things that you try and do, and I worked at a level that is no more than anyone else. But jumping into the Lord of the Rings, fortunately, I suppose, a lot of film work, they want writing to be written as if not by a professional, but by an everyday person like a Hobbit or whatever. So not everyone in Middle-earth is an expert calligrapher. So I got away with being able to do some pretty terrible handwriting for Bilbo Baggins, for example. Just invented how he was going to do his script, which is, as Tolkien describes, as uneven and spidery and pretty unsure of himself. But
was it not first the Lord of the Rings movies and then the Hobbit? Like,
yes, but the Red Book of Bilbo Baggins features in the film of the Lord of the Rings as well. It kind of it bookends the whole story. The old Hobbit is there writing his book, and then it switches back to 60 years earlier. No, it doesn't. I'm getting confused between the two films now. But essentially, Bilbo's Red Book is in both films, and his writing as the Hobbit is central to both things. So this book exists in both films, and that was one of the first things I had to do.
Okay, I need to know a lot. Like, I'm very like I don't know what to ask, because I haven't prepared. I didn't know what to prepare. I usually don't prepare much for those podcasts. It's just talking with the guest. But seriously, I was so excited, and I want to learn every detail. Like, how long did it take to make for like the calligraphy for one movie? And was it like from the first movie they decided that you're gonna do all the calligraphy for all the movies, or what was the whole process?
It evolved as it went, but they were always going to shoot all 3 movies. So when you build a set, you shoot everything that's going to happen in that set, whether it's at the start of if you build Bag End, you will film the start of the film, you'll film the end of the whole trilogy, which happens there as well. You film everything and then you tear down that set and you build a different one. So they had 3 films to shoot, and it was always going to be 3 films. So you just do them all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I can't remember, a year and a half or 2 years of filming, and then post-production and pick-up shots and what have you would carry on each year as they realized what they didn't already have, and they'd get you to do some more stuff. But yeah, pretty much once I got my feet on the ground there, I became the guy, and well, I'll show you some more stuff.
Yeah.
It's easier to explain if I've got it in front of me.
Sure. It's all good.
So, okay, that's the first thing I did for the films, which were the labels on Gandalf's fireworks, which I don't think ever get seen, but it was fun to do. But here's the red book I was talking about. This and this is me figuring out how to write with a quill pen. I tried a fountain pen first, but if you want to have writing look as though it's written with a quill, obviously the best thing to do is just write it with a quill. So I learned how to use a quill, how to cut pens and what have you. And here's a few shots of the book. So I've written as Bilbo, There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins. And then in Frodo's hand, I have written And the Lord of the Rings by, and then Frodo, Elijah Wood would come along on screen and write Frodo Baggins. So there's take 1, take 2, and we did half a dozen takes of that scene. So I had to teach, I had some sessions with Elijah Wood and with Sir Ian Holm. This is teaching Ian Holm how to write his bit concerning hobbits at the front of the book.
Those are the actors?
Yeah, these are the actors in the film. This is teaching Elijah how to write his Frodo Baggins signature. And this is Elijah. This is Elijah practicing his the last words he was going to write in the book.
Wow. So
yeah.
So this means that whatever you've done, like they haven't shot you writing, like they haven't recorded you writing. No,
they didn't. For the Lord of the Rings, they had Elijah write on camera. They had Sir Ian Holm writing on camera. And this, by the way, is the last 6 pages of the book, which no one has ever seen, really. So this is me writing as Frodo. But when we switched over to The Hobbit, which this is The Hobbit here, this is me writing on camera. So I did get a chance in the end to get the camera, and it was like a 3D. They were shooting this in 3D, so the camera thing was huge. It's just a massive thing, and the person doing the thing, myself, is just, you're not even important. They've got to set up the lights, and they've got to set up the camera, and they have to get everything right and all this. And then you kind of come in at the last minute, and you've got to work around this huge thing in your face, and reaching around, and you can barely see what you're doing. And it's just, it's lucky that Bilbo's writing is an untidy script, because it was just so hard to do and still make it look like that.
This is based on Unshow, as I could see, but I guess you had to make it your own, to be different and unique.
Yes,
right?
Indeed, exactly. It's kind of I guess half Unshow is the closest thing, but it's got some strange little accent marks, and it has become one of my own handwritings. It's a weird thing. I had to no one else has been able, they can't do it. It's unique, just like your handwriting is to you. When we did The Hobbit, we ended up having 4 people playing Bilbo Baggins. There was this is old Bilbo Baggins. For the close-ups and face shots was Sir Ian Holm, for the continuity with the Lord of the Rings, and then for the wide shots they used Martin Freeman, who also plays young Bilbo Baggins, and then they had Frank, the hand double, whose hands looked exactly like Ian Holm's hands, so that he could strike the match on the camera and dip the quill in the ink and what have you. And then they had me to actually do the writing on the book, because no one else can make the writing look the same, and it had to look the same as in Lord of the Rings. And it's just, it is surprising that even though I made it up, it's still a writing that's unique to me, and it's just weird.
How much time did it take you to develop this? Like, was it a struggle? Like, was it easy?
Writing the book itself was easy. I mean, once my hand has learned how to do that writing, it's just coming up with the words. For the Lord of the Rings, I was allowed to write about 30 pages of the book in my own words, just me telling the story as I wished. And that was, if I was to take anything away from the Lord of the Rings films that I had made, I would take that red book with me. It was just, they gave me so much creativity, so much creative license to do with it whatever I liked. So I just drew what I like to draw,
but developing the style itself, how much time did it take? Like, were you wondering
to establish the style?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was, I probably came back with them with a couple of different looks, and they said, yeah, let's do this, let's not use this accent mark, let's change this. And as soon as I got back the second time round, we said, yeah, that's it, we've nailed it, let's go. And it probably had taken me, I don't know, a week to learn how to come up with Bilbo's unique look of writing, and the Shire alphabet in general, and then Bilbo's version, which has kind of flourishes in all the wrong places, and it's a bit overdone, and then there's Frodo who writes it correctly. And so I just had to teach my hand to do both versions of that script. And then in the background, there's a million other versions of it, because you're pretending to be everyone in the Shire all at once. And whether you're the cooper or the farmer or whatever, they've all got their different ways of writing. So you try and vary it and do it with brushes and do it with pens and do it with whatever you can think of, and make it all different.
What was the most challenging thing that you had to do for the movies in terms of calligraphy, and what was the easiest and most exciting for you?
Oh, probably the most challenging stuff is things in Elvish, because the elves kind of live forever, much like myself.
I was gonna say, are you elf?
So they've had forever to get really good at calligraphy, and so you have to assume that if an elf is going to go to the trouble of writing anything down, he's going to do it really well. So it was a bit daunting to do anything in Elvish, because it should always look so nice. And I think I got there okay with some, but that was pretty tricky. Are
there more examples that you can show from
those
kinds of things?
I'll go through. Okay. So there's some more Bilbo Baggins stuff, writing the party invitations. That was me doing some recently with a quill pen. And I've written that sign more times than I can excuse me, it's the more important a prop is, the more repeats of it you have to have. You have to do it in two. Everything in the Hobbit and in the Lord of the Rings is in two scales as well. So you need the Hobbit scale and the human scale, and then you need 10 backups of each one, and it's just now this reminds me, the writing on the ring clearly was a huge central part of the Lord of the Rings, so that had to be right, and that was one of the earliest things they got me to do.
And this is like a Elvish?
That's Elvish, and
Okay.
I've drawn it exactly. Professor Tolkien came up with this script, and this is just exactly how he wrote it.
Okay.
For some reason, they got me to do it with white.
I have a question.
Black. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to read. Is this even English? Or does it say anything specific, or is just letters?
It does. It's the underlying language of it is, in fact, the black speech of Mordor.
Okay.
So when you translate it, it comes out as like Ash Nazg do Batuluk, Ash Nazg Gimbatula. It's this different language. But the translation of it into English is one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. And that's what's written on the ring itself. So that was central to the film, and I had to get that right at the start. Here's a whole bunch.
Can you just
Sorry?
come back for a second on the ring? Like,
Yeah.
in this, I think this word, it says like elf. Do you see it? What I mean?
No.
In the left,
No.
like here, where is the space before the space? Like this looks like elf, ELF.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Actually, I do. You're right. And now that you've said that, I will never be able to unsee it. You've ruined it for me.
Oh, come on, I'm sorry. I just thought because it's Elvish. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. That's funny. I'm going to add that to my whenever I talk about this. So here's a bunch. As well as what you see, the hero stuff, there's all sorts of background things. So here are a few examples. There's a whole lot of Elvish.
Like, okay, how do you come up with this Elvish? Like, how that if somebody wants to develop a Elvish script, like what's the process behind developing this kind? Because when you look to it really looks like Elvish, or I don't know, something that's been there forever. Like,
yeah, it does. It's Tolkien thought it out, and it's a pretty well thought out alphabet, and I've come up with numerous ones for different projects of my own, and it's actually something that hang on, where's how I thought of this before for your calligraphy masters challenges.
yeah.
And just an idea is a challenge is come up with your own invented script. As just an idea, because I've done that. I've done that a lot of times.
This is a great idea, but usually the challenge. Of course, there are some people who are like good calligraphers and they participate, but a lot of those people, they are just beginners and they're just trying to learn calligraphy and all this. How do you like? Maybe if you explain to people how they can come up with their script, maybe, I mean, this is actually, it sounds like a great challenge, but give some tips how to develop your own script. Like, if you...
Sure.
I have no idea. Yeah. Just when you say that now, I'm thinking, okay, this is cool, but how can I do it?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing to do, and I've done a lot of it recently on another huge project that I'm not allowed to tell you about. But
this doesn't sound cool.
We'll come back for part 2 when I'm allowed to talk about it.
Okay, this promise.
Yeah. But it is. I've done it for other things, for Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of different clients. Made different scripts for them, as well as for my own interest. And it is a challenging thing to do, to make it look as if it was designed and has been in use and is done by different people in different styles. It's quite a mission to come up with a coherent kind of look to a script and make it seem a real part of the world. So I did some more of it in Mortal Engines, which we may get to if we've got time. But
what? Like, wow. Now that you say, like, it makes sense. Like, I mean, like, did you get many more clients because of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit?
Yeah. I like I said, I did the filming of the Lord of the Rings while I still had a real job. But when it got to the end of it, that kind of movie generates a whole lot of publicity and action figures and books and just a ton of merchandise. So for films like that, they make a thing called a style guide, which I'll show you shortly. And that's got the approved art and the approved lettering and the approved illustrations that all of the licensees must adhere to. And when New Line Cinema approached me and said, this is what we need for our style guide for Lord of the Rings, it was this huge list. And it was at that point I just had to make the decision, shall I work at the bank for another 100 years or shall I go and be an artist? And it was just, hey, let's go and be an artist. And it's just a leap of faith onto the roller coaster of being a self-employed artist. And
so Lord of the Rings was a breaking point? Like,
yeah.
Okay, this is funny. Like, you were very young and you like kind of fell in love with calligraphy because of Lord of the Rings. Then your life been running, and then you, your client becomes Lord of the Rings, and because of it, you become a professional calligrapher.
Yeah, just to this weird circle, and it came back and haunted me, and I still haven't been able to escape from Middle Earth yet, but it keeps coming back. But we'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. But it is funny. It is funny. The thing that really sparked my interest in the first place is the same thing that kicked off my professional art career. So yeah, pretty bizarre.
This makes me think like I don't know, are you a person who believes that some things are meant, or like when I listen to your story, it sounds like it's meant for you to be calligrapher. It's meant for you to be the one who makes the calligraphy for Lord of the Rings. Like, the whole story, like, I don't know, this is just too crazy. And the fact that you told me that you approached them to be, to make the calligraphy, this is crazy. Earlier, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna ask him, like, were there, like, something like, were they searching for calligraphers or anything? And the moment you told me you approached them, I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Like, how did you even know that they're shooting a movie for Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, well, it was in the newspaper. They said that Peter Jackson's making this trilogy of films, and like I said, it's virtually on my doorstep. It's just to drive 20 minutes away. So I knew that I could at least have a decent shot at it and get maybe some background stuff in, but I think I landed in their lap at exactly the time that they needed all the stuff done, and they just said, yeah, let's go for it.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
I'll show you some more.
You also did maps, like you mentioned maps.
Yeah, the maps came up as well. Let's go through. There's some stuff in English, and again, you try and do as many different styles as you can. Some more Elvish, that's more recent.
This is like, now that
this is one of the,
just looking to this makes me want to learn to write like this. This is insane. Are you teaching people to write Elvish? Has anyone ever asked you?
I have taught a few workshops, but not specifically on Elvish, although it's probably a good idea. If people are interested, then I can do that. That's one of the hero props where Gandalf reads the ring writing on an old document.
Okay.
And there were loads of other things, just illustrations, more Elvish. These are some set dressings in Rivendell. There's the Fall of Gil-galad, a poem which I've extended from Tolkien's version. There's the Scroll of the Kings of Numenor, which is sort of a made a black letter version of Elvish. And I designed an Elvish telescope, which was very cool. I was really pleased that they saw that they built that. It's
The picture of the telescope
the
you
one on
designed it?
The props, people just needed stuff left, right, and center. So I had a go at designing the telescope, and there it is. They built it. It was very cool.
Wow.
There's some more Elvish in a huge big book. And speaking of books, this is another hero one, the Saruman's book, which shows the West Gate of Moria, which again is another illustration that I copied from Tolkien, and it culminates in this is Alan Lee illustrating the Balrog in the end of this book that we were working on together. Another one in Moria is the book of near Balin's tomb. There's this book. These are copies of the pages prior to distressing them, and it finishes again with the one on the right here is the page that Gandalf reads from in the film, ending with "They are coming," trading off in that little scroll at the end. So yeah, there's some rune action going on there. It was you certainly get to write everything. And then, as you said, maps came up. So I drew this map of, they said they needed the map of the Lonely Mountain as described in The Hobbit. So I drew this, which is exactly as Tolkien drew it. And Peter Jackson said, "This is great. Now do it again, smaller, and change the shape of the mountain and make it livelier looking dragon." So I made this as the Lord of the Rings version of the Lonely Mountain map.
But
this is coming up.
Can you come back?
Yeah.
For a second? You made this?
Come back.
You made this?
Yeah.
And why does it look like so? Like, was this the paper you made it, or they made it somehow look this old?
Believe it or not, the film industry standard of aging things is still to stain it with tea and coffee. But but I'm an artist, so I've always used watercolor. All this is watercolor paint on watercolor paper.
Okay.
And then just beat the hell out of it and rip it and tear it and distress it.
Wow.
And trample on it. You just give it heaps and essentially pack 100 years worth of aging into a few days, and really go layer after layer after layer, and you give it a really hard time. So you start off with good quality watercolor paper if you want to do that.
What? Like what? I'm just my mind is blown right now. Seriously.
But this is hang on. This is designing Smaug the dragon to appear on that map.
Okay.
And here is the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit version of the same thing. So this is 60 years earlier. It's the map as seen in the Hobbit.
That's what I was gonna ask. Do you have those in your in your place, or they took them?
Well, I can recreate them pretty easily, but so I have numerous copies of things. There's a map from the Hobbit, and I got to do some artwork as well. So I drew portraits and what have you, which were very cool to do. But with the Lonely Mountain map, I always wanted, even when I read this as a kid, to make a version of this map where you can read the secret runes that appear when it's in the book when it's lit by the moonlight and all, but I just wanted to make it so if you shine a light from the back, you get the secret runes appearing here on the map.
And you
So I
wrote
had an idea.
with
I
lemon?
was going to make them. Sorry?
You wrote with lemon? Lemon juice?
No. I'll show you. I did. I thought I would make a parchment front and draw the map on it, and make a parchment back, and then in between the two layers, I was going to sandwich a third layer from which the runes had all been cut out.
Okay.
So when you shone the light through, you'd see the gaps. And I set out to do exactly that. And I thought I need to get these runes really carefully done. So I drew them and made a print of them so I know where to cut out. And then I thought, wait a minute, this works already. It was one of those processes that got simpler and simpler. And I'll show you. This is. I hope you can see this on the camera, but.
Oh. Whoa!
I know, right? So all it is that I've printed in black on the back of the map and left the lettering unprinted, so that.
Wow.
We get the. Yeah.
Yes.
It was pretty simple, and so I made a two-sided version of the map and the single-sided printed version. So a bit of sleight of hand. Elrond can put down the full map and pick up the one that's printed in black, and we have a special effect without any need for special effects. It was it was cool, a cool moment.
Do you have you have a lot of those things that you showed, work that you've done for the World of the Rings? Do you have them in your place? Do they stay with you, or they require to take them?
Pretty much whenever you work on a film or a TV program, the film company, TV company, they own everything you do.
Okay.
You don't get any rights to keep any of it. So I have some things here simply because you make initial copies, and you might get to keep the one that wasn't used in the film or whatever, or in some cases I've recreated them. Having done them once, I can recreate them exactly, because you have to do that as well. You have to make 10 copies of the map because it's so important, and you have to make smaller scales and bigger scales, and so you get pretty good at making the same thing over and over again.
Wow.
So I do have some sort of hero pieces. Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a long shot, but I don't care. This just makes me so hyped. I'm gonna ask, is there a piece that maybe you can send me? I really would love to have something on this wall, but this is gonna be, I don't know even how to describe it. Feel free to say no, but I don't know. I'm just shooting for it.
I would love to send you something. I will do exactly that.
Really?
Trust. Yeah, totally. I'll get your address and we'll
oh my God, I'm so happy. Wow.
Let's make that happen.
Wow. Okay. And what else? What else? It's interesting that you can share about. I'm so hyped. I don't even know what to ask. This is just speechless. Just watching and listening to everything. Wow.
This one I put on Instagram. I'm just new to Instagram, but I showed this a couple of weeks ago.
I have a question about Instagram. Your Instagram is so low. Guys, whoever is listening, whoever is watching, please, there's gonna be his Instagram on the video. It will be in the description. Go follow this guy. He deserves to have followers. Please, guys, please go and follow Daniel on Instagram. You'll find the links in the description. He has what was it? I think it's less than 1,000 followers. This is fucking insane, people. This is the person who created the calligraphy for such iconic movies. I'm pretty sure most of you have watched them, have watched it, and I love those movies. I'm sure a lot of people love those movies. If you're a calligrapher who loves the movies, please go follow Daniel. This is for
And
me, like I don't understand how you have so few followers.
well, I've only just started. It's and I don't know. It's I'm so old. I don't really, and I'm not in the digital world as much as I probably should be. But I'm going to try and get some content out there, and yeah, let's see what happens. This one I put up a month or so ago is what the map could have looked like if Guillermo del Toro had continued to direct The Hobbit, and with fair justification, because it was a dwarven map made by dwarves to be read only by dwarves, then it might as well be in dwarvish. So this was a lot of fun to kind of do lots of gilding, lots of runes,
Yeah, this
have a
is
fresh
like
look at it.
gold, right? Or
Yeah,
wow,
gold leaf.
gold leaf. Wow.
And then, yeah, distress it and age it and knock half of it off again. So that was fun, but not to be. But there were plenty of other maps. This appeared in both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. This was in the Lord of the Rings. This is a map that we see Gandalf flicks through. And of course, the film titles came up. Being the lettering guy for these things, this is some of the Lord of the Rings in various languages there. I don't think I have a Bulgarian one for you, sorry.
Really?
Yeah, they got me to do the lettering for the various films. And back to maps. So this is drawing the famous Middle-earth map, which what I mentioned earlier, the style guide. This was central to the style guide, and it was the map that appeared as the wallpaper. It was on every package, every action figure, every book that you see in the shops. It was insane. I drew it on a $7 sheet of paper in my garage and threw water at it, and it was just really bizarre that I would sent it off then to New York to get scanned, and the next time I saw it was in the shops where it was just staring at me from 100 action figures and books and umbrellas, and just everywhere I looked, this map that I had drew, it was just surreal. And I knew that it was the same everywhere in the world. It was kind of bizarre, really bizarre.
Before you made the calligraphy for Lord of the Rings, were you expecting that it's gonna go so big? Like,
No,
I mean, you read already the books, so
yeah, I thought it might have been a pretty decent set of films because it's a good story, but there's no way I expected it to kind of be what it became. So yeah, I was sort of blown away with the stuff that I had done. It was just wow. It was really. So I would go into, my son and I would go into the shop, and I'd buy him like a cave troll action figure so that he could get the action figure and I could get the packaging because it had my map on it. And it was, it was fun times. So I did learn a thing on that map though. I had drawn it with Winsor & Newton calligraphy inks, the sepia for the line drawing, and some Indian red, I think it is, for the calligraphy. But I had foolishly made that map on the wrong kind of paper. It wasn't watercolor paper, it was like printmaking paper. And this is a mistake I'll never forget. I had done all the calligraphy like you saw, then let it dry, and then the next I took to it with the watercolor, but because it was the wrong kind of paper, it stayed wet forever. It took like the next day to be dry. So when I looked at the map, I'll bring it back on screen, the last piece of calligraphy that I had done had bled into the surrounding area. It's in the cartouche here at the bottom where it says Middle Earth. All the other red ink was fine, but this one hadn't had long enough to dry, and the water had made it bleed everywhere. It was this big pink stain, and it was just a disaster. So there was no time to make it again, so I had to patch it up with acrylic.
Okay.
And I've said to people on numerous occasions, the lesson is if you're using Winsor and Newton Indian red, make sure you give it about 3 days to dry. But in fact, that's not the case. It's I think all of the Winsor and Newton inks behave the same. Some stick onto the paper more than others, but basically it just needs to be really, really dry, and they all dry fine, and they all will accept several wettings afterwards, but you should wet them as few times as you can get away with to avoid them lifting off. But anyway, the map, like I said, came back on a million different bits of merchandise, and it was no one's ever figured out that it had to be patched up with acrylic. So it was just, there were board games, and there's some more. They also, having made the style guide, they got me to work on, other people got me to work on their trading cards and their board games and their whatever merchandise. But here is where it gets interesting. This is the style guide, like I said, had to provide all of the approved artwork, approved lettering, approved look of the whole thing. So they needed me to provide them the look of all of the different characters, places, and events with their own fonts, styles. Each one of these name treatments has the look of what it's describing.
Okay.
So it was it was far more work than it looks like on screen here, but the list of all this stuff was what enabled me to leave the bank and become a full-time artist. So here are some of them in the act of being created. I was working here with a pencil, of course, just drawing out the initial, how they should look. And here are some of the uses they went to. There was postage stamps, and there's working out how to do the Saruman thing, coming up with some fonts, each with its own look that went with the characters of that race. And it was just like, as you can see, there's a lot of design work that went behind it. And yeah, bizarrely, yeah, I would see my writing on the side of an airplane, and it was just insane. Wow. There's the same sort of deal for The Hobbit.
Okay.
So all of these bits of writing reflect the characters that they come from, or the event or the place. Yeah.
Huh. What's the thought process like? How like I really like. I think you should like you said, you teach some workshop. Do you usually, as a calligrapher, like, do you actually consider yourself a calligrapher or more like an artist?
Both. Definitely both. I do fine art and what have you, but with the calligraphy is a pretty big niche. That's a big part of what I do. Calligraphy and making the maps. That's what people come and seek me out for, because there's plenty of artists out there, but the calligrapher is a kind of a narrower field. So that's what I'm more well known for, and it does feel like what I do mainly is.
So are there some workshops that you're teaching, or it's not something like a regular thing?
I'm just so bit. I have taught several workshops, and I've got more coming up. I'm going to do an italic one this year for our local group, I think. Okay. But they do come up from time to time, and I'd kind of like to teach some more. The Friends of Calligraphy in San Francisco have asked me to come and do a workshop there, or if not come over, then do it online. But we'll get to that. But the last couple of years, I've just been so busy, I haven't been able to do any teaching at all. It's just this huge project I had to do.
That you don't want to think about, right?
No, I can't tell you. I had to go and live in a different city.
What?
I had to pack up. Yeah, I had to go and live in Auckland for 2.5 years.
Okay. I have a question before.
Yep.
whenever you finish this project, you just mentioned that you can also teach online. Are you willing to do a workshop with calligraphy masters, to workshop in which you teach people how to develop this style, like this different styles that you mentioned earlier? It's gonna be good to be like a challenge. Like, I don't know even how to
Yeah,
explain
yeah,
it.
sure,
Yeah?
sure. I think it'll probably end up being more like a lecture than a hands-on. I don't know. Maybe we could figure out how to do that, because another thing I wanted to say to you, of course, is to congratulate you on Calligraphy Masters and providing a place, an online place where calligraphers can gather from everywhere. And I think it is just fantastic what you've achieved with this thing. It's like it should be a magnet for every calligrapher to come and view the best, not only the best, but like you said, examples of people that are learning, just all levels, come in and view Calligraphy Masters and have a look. So I'm going to encourage that as much as I can, because I think you've just done an amazing job with it. It's really, I applaud you, man.
Oh,
It's cool.
I don't even know how to react to such stuff, because like I don't know what to say. Like, thank you, thank you. Like, I don't know. I'm a person with passion for calligraphy. I'm not like,
Yeah.
I'm not even a good calligrapher. I just love calligraphy. I love it so much. Like 10, 15 minutes ago, I look into my camera. I noticed, like, since the podcast started, I'm just smiling and smiling, just listening to what you're telling and looking all those examples. I'm like a kid, you know. I enjoy this so much. This is so fucking amazing.
Good.
Okay, and from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you said you had a lot of other clients. Can you mention some clients that you got from those movies, that some big clients, that works that you've already done that are not secret? What other big projects you've been involved?
I'll flick through a few more on here. This is there's more to see. Just a second. Wait, I've lost the ability to share. No, here we are. So there's The Hobbit again. The film titles came up for The Hobbit. For each of the films within The Hobbit, I just made the lettering for the titles and for the credits later on. And here's another opportunity to do more of Bilbo's writing, plus all of the lettering in the Shire. There's a whole lot of lettering from all the different places. And as I mentioned, you're trying always to be the entire population of Middle Earth. So forever looking for a different look for this and that. Oh, this one.
Whoa.
This is the Bilbo's contract. His contract as the burglar in The Hobbit, and this was in the book as like about 3 clauses of a contract. It's just so tiny, and I drew that. I did it up in a kind of a font that looked like runes but was English, and sent it through to in the night pack, which is the thing that Peter and Philippa and Fran would give their feedback, and they'd send it back the next morning, and everyone would learn what do I have to do next. I sent this thing off in the night pack, and they said, yeah, that's nice, but can we make it a bit longer? So it turned into a longer page, and I sent that off in the night pack, and the answer would come back, yeah, let's try 2 pages, shall we? Okay, and I just do it again, and I'm thinking up all these different legal clauses for this contract. And each time I sent it off, they just said, make it longer, make it bigger, smaller words, bigger, just go crazy. So in the end, it became this crazy thing. It's just, not sure how much of this you can see on the camera there, but it was insane. And it's all just, again, this is a different style that I kind of invented for this thing. and then signed at the bottom by the appropriate characters.
Is this always with the quill?
No, this was with speedball pens. That's my go-to thing is speedball nibs, but in a style that I kind of came up with that was suitable, and just in the words, I was just stealing bits from my employment contract with the film and with insurance contract, and just making up all these crazy wordings. I just had a ball. It was just so and I finally got the thing, and it was a huge amount of writing, and I got this thing made, stitched together, sealed up with wax, sent it off in the night pack, and the message that came back was, "This is perfect. You've done it. You've cracked it. PJ approved. Now make it again." Because they just, everything that is important, you have to have multiple copies. So I had to sit down with a light box and just do the whole thing again and then again. But in the end, it takes, even with a light box and the steam coming off your pen, it still takes more than a week to make one of those things.
Whoa.
So it's a lot. The smaller you write, the more writing you need to fill up the space. So it's just an insane amount of writing. So in the end, I scanned it and made some printed versions for the smaller scale, and for the wide shots where you see the martins leaping over fences in Matamata, and this thing's getting caught and ripped. And so there were printed versions for doing that. But other than that, pretty much everything is handmade for these films, because you just get a better result that way. So that was insane. If I could take away something from the Lord of the Rings, it would have been the Red Book. And if I took away something from the Hobbit, it would be that contract, because it was just, again, the chance to use my own creativity with it and make it the way I saw fit, come up with all the words. It was just bizarre, insane.
Now that I think to like the whole conversation, I think I know what's the secret. You're not coming up with anything. You just, because you're immortal, you've been living through so many times. You've seen this somewhere, like throughout the centuries, you've seen the works. You're not coming up with anything.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah, I know. I've done it for hundreds of years and it's still exactly. So, okay, let's get some more.
Wow, this contract, please come back. I want to. Wow, this is just, I don't know. I'm speechless. This is such a beauty, and wow. Seriously.
It is. It's a very, very cool piece. And I made a mistake on the stitching. I was stitching them together, and the very third to last stitch, I made a mistake. But because it was PJ approved with that mistake in it, every single copy I've ever made of it ever since has the same deliberate stitching mistake in it. And that's
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. This is a book by Radagast the Wizard. I don't think we see it on camera, but here's another invented script. This is me inventing a script that the orcs use, the goblins, and that is written in black speech, and it has it's something like, for the head of the dwarf they call Oakenshield, 30 gold pieces, or some such ransom note. So that was a challenge to write on letter and do it in a couple of different scales. This is lettering from Lake Town, which we encounter later on, and quite a lot of lettering in Dwarvish in their runes with a lot of gilding and.
Damn, this looks amazing.
Yeah, that's time consuming to do. It doesn't flow off the pen the same way our own lettering does, but these are dwarves, so they use lots of gold and gilding and what have you. And, there are a million slides I could show you of these films, but I in the end had to come up with the look of decorating Wellington City as the middle of Middle Earth for the launch of this thing. So there's the biggest sign I've ever made. The wrap party for the when we finished making the Hobbit. And that's kind of this occurred years later. They made a box set of all the discs. But here are some other projects. There's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and again that's another invented script for the stone table, and the arrest warrant for Mr. Tumnus by Morgram, the captain of the secret police. That was a nice prop to make. And again, it had its own merchandising map of Narnia.
What? You worked for Narnia as well?
Yeah. That was another one. This was from King Kong. There was numerous props within King Kong, so that was a lot of fun to work on.
How many movies have you worked for?
You have to look on my website. There's probably a dozen, I guess. This is one called The Legend of the... I think it came out as The Warrior's Way in the end. It was a different thing. And sorry, that was the first time I used a copper plate nib was for that thing.
Okay.
The guys showed me an example. Can you make some writing that looks something like this? And I said, sure, yeah, no problem. And I thought, oh my God, how do I do that? And it was just I went out and bought probably a browser I use mostly for copper plate, and just learned how to use that. And said, yeah. But again, you see, the thing is, they don't want it to look as if it's written by an expert. They want it to look like this guy, this is what he had, and he just wrote this thing. So it's not expert copper plate. It's just someone's handwriting with a split nib. And so I get away with murder because all of these films and stuff, they always want it to look as if it's written by, this is just written by some crazy person who survived Skull Island. And there's, I don't know if you can see it, that the gorilla face on the map there.
Yeah. So
I get to write and just all kinds of untidy things, because in the stories, these things are always written by someone that's just a Joe average person.
Does this mean you're the one who makes all the calligraphy in the movies? Like it sounds like have done something for Game of Thrones?
No, I didn't get to do Game of Thrones. I missed that one.
Do you know other people like you who does similar stuff to you, like calligraphy and lettering for movies?
No, I don't know who they are, but there are people out there. Clearly, there's a film. What's it called, about the little mouse with big ears and Despero, I think his name is, and there's some. It's like it's animated kids film, but it's he studies these books, and I don't know who it is, but whoever's done the calligraphy, it's fantastic, really, really, really good. So yeah, there are other people. It's not just me.
I'm not sure anymore. And
there are others. Hang on. Okay. We're nearly at the end of this. I promise. This you don't have to sit through it. You have a lot more. This was from Spartacus, which was fun because it got to do the old. I forgot the name of it. The old Roman. Name's gone out of my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Roman capitals.
What's that?
Roman
the rustic.
Oh, rustic.
Yeah, Roman capitals and rustic script. Yeah.
Rustic, yeah.
This one writing in Hebrew and Syriac and what have you for a film called Kingdom Come, which they began but never finished. So that was writing on papyrus and learning how to do Hebrew and Syriac and a couple of others there.
I
reed
never
pens.
written on papyrus actually. How is that? Is it?
It's kind of a hard surface, but it takes ink quite nicely. And the main thing there was using reed pens. So I've cut a million reed pens, and mostly I just do it with bamboo. I think they got me some actual the proper reeds from the Nile, I think, for the hero stuff. But I've done it mostly with bamboo.
Wow.
This was for Tintin. Again, that was another film by Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg. They jointly did this one. So these 3 bits of paper, when you line them up and shine the light through them, the message at the bottom becomes some map coordinates.
Again, like the one for the Hobbit that you showed with the black background? Or?
Yeah, well, this one you just shine, they're done on really thin paper, and when the light shines through, all of the pieces line up, and you can read the message across the bottom turns into a compass, a bearing, such and such degrees north and so many degrees west, and it's a map coordinates.
Okay.
When they all line up together.
Huh.
These are designs from Mortal Engines, which I worked on, and that was a lot of fun to do. It was London on wheels. There's some London sort of script.
Wow.
This is another invented script for the rebel settlement called Shanguao. So I've invented these.
Can you bring it back a little bit? It looks something like a mix of Sanskrit and this, I don't know, the Indian.
Yeah, that's right. Some of the Tamil scripts and in Asia there, that's the inspiration. So I just invented a new system of consonants, and hanging off below the consonants are the vowels, so that the pieces hanging from the main bar line at the top are the consonants of the alphabet, and below them are hanging all the little curly bits of the vowels that make up the rest of the words. So that was another cool one to invent. And here it is. I think I made some. You can't see it very well. I didn't get many photos of it, but it's used throughout this little set here, and some other.
Looks super cool.
Yeah, Oriental looking things. This is from The Letter for the King, which was a kids' TV series. It's a lot of fun to do. That's the letter itself. And I think there are a few more, but
okay,
the rest of this.
Finally, some normal calligraphy.
These are just random bits I've put together to.
Oh wow, this is such a nice uncial. Wow.
Yeah, I think uncial's underrated. It can have a lot of character. So,
yes, I love uncial. Yeah. Like of course, not this very very traditional, but like this, like here, I've seen like also some other calligraphers having fun with like. I really love uncial, especially something like this. Wow, this is super nice.
Yeah, I think it's nice. This commission, a lot of what I do these days is commissions. So someone commissioned me to come up with the name of their musical instruments. This was a commission for an exhibition called Cloak. So I think that was ruling pen kind of deal. There's some more uncial, just done for the hell of it for an exhibition. Nice little quote. That's from June, one of the quotes from June. I didn't work on that film, but I have read the books a few times, and also just a bit of italic. This one, I think you guys picked up in your early days of Calligraphy Masters.
That's what I started the podcast. I told you I knew you for a long time because I remember I've posted this and now like few months. It's actually I think Gingy. It's a girl, a woman from USA. I believe she told me that you were the one that done
Okay.
the
Oh, wow.
calligraphy for Lord of the Rings. And when I checked your account, I went to check your account and I was following you. I was like, what? How am I following you? And then I scrolled and I saw this piece and I was like, wow, you like this was a moment I was like, I know the guy, but I didn't know.
Yeah, that was the early days. And I was so
Yeah,
stoked that you guys picked that one up and featured it. It was,
yeah, it was such a nice like it's still such a nice piece. I love it. It's like
it's,
so sharp and everything. Like
it's one of the pieces that I think it's one of the better bits I've ever made. It's I first was just going to draw fire, air, earth, and water in the old script because that was the theme of the exhibition, and I just needed something else. So I added the modern elements. Those are the ancient elements in the middle, but the modern elements of the periodic table, starting with hydrogen, helium, lithium, etc., in the lightest, very light, very weight, just like the element, they're very light. And then as their atomic weights get heavier and heavier, the writing gets darker and bigger and blacker, and it ends up having the entire periodic table all written around the edge. So it was just one of those brainwave moments that came up with exactly the right backdrop for the elements. That's quite recent. There's some map making on that's doing calligraphy in white acrylic on canvas, which if you've prepared your canvas correctly is nice to do. Some black letter. Again, that's on canvas.
on canvas, like
Yeah, canvas.
what tools did you use for canvas calligraphy? You do it
This one here.
with a nib or a brush?
This is brush lettering.
Yeah.
Of a little while back, I'll tell you, after all this film stuff, which I did in a vacuum for the Lord of the Rings, and then I learned that there were actually calligraphy groups out there that gather, and I had no idea, and they invited me to come along, and I joined a couple of calligraphy groups here, and since then I have done a couple of workshops, and one of the early ones was with what's his name? It's gone out of my head. But learning, one of the breakthroughs for me was learning pen manipulation.
Yeah.
And so whenever I've taught a workshop since then, I've always said to the people, whether or not you're ready at this point in your calligraphic journey to do pen manipulation, you should at least be aware that it exists, because all of the calligraphy that you look at and you admire, you can guarantee there'll be some kind of pen manipulation done with, so you get a wasted stroke and all this sort of stuff. Doesn't matter whether you're ready to do it or not yourself, but know that it exists and it's in your future, and this is what will take your calligraphy to the next level. So I did a workshop that introduced pen manipulation, and then another workshop in which Massimo Polello taught us brush Roman capitals,
Okay.
which of course the pen manipulation, the angling of the brush. So those couple of workshops together, both with steel nibs, like the so-called automatic pens, which are nothing but the big automatic pens and brushes to do Roman lettering, Roman capitals, or all of these manipulated Gothic letters or italic or anything, is people should always be aware that pen manipulation is a key part of getting it to that level.
Yeah, it's true, because some of the calligraphers and artists whose work I most admire, it's true, like the details, because with the more manipulations you do details, and all of these people that I'm talking, they have their unique, these unique touches and details that are exactly because of the pen manipulation.
Yeah, yeah. It's vital to the whole thing. I think there's hardly anything else to show you on here, but some maps, a menu. There's some italic. That's got pen manipulation going on. There's some ruling pen. This was quite recent.
Okay.
Doing Shakespeare, the dude.
I'm actually doing,
I know you're. Yeah.
Here, you cannot see it, but here is Shakespeare actually.
Hang on, wait. I'm gonna get this out of the way.
You cannot see it. It's just outlined. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I haven't filled it, but mine.
This is to add to your series. I've been loving your series with the
Thank
Mozart.
you, but yours looks like, what size was this Shakespeare's of yours? Like the paper?
About 30 centimeters, like 300 mil.
Okay.
Quite little, and it's the writing is nothing flash. It's all Shakespeare's words.
Okay.
But
yeah, wow.
it's just pretty ordinary writing. But the main thing was the image, really, to come up with the look of the guy. So.
You use another technique, which is super cool, but now I don't want to make mine. Now mine is not gonna. Now mine is not gonna look this good.
No, keep doing yours. They're cool. This was for a guy. A fan sent me a letter, and he wanted stonemason written, and this is the German word for stonemason, Steinmetz. So I just sent it over to him, and he sent back this photo of it with his stonemaking tools.
Huh.
That was nice to do. But again, there's pen manipulation going on there.
I can see. Very beautiful.
Yeah. There's a tattoo design.
I want to learn this Elvish style. It just looks amazing. Guys, if there is anyone else who wants to learn this Elvish, please comment below. Let's gather some people and make Daniel make a workshop about it.
Yeah, bring it on. That'll be cool.
Yes. Wow.
So
okay,
that's the images I had ready for you. I realized that this is a lot of people. It's just a listening thing, but
well,
calligraphy is a visual thing. So I think if people can find the time to watch it on YouTube, then seeing is is a more immersive kind of thing. So
there was a lot of images in this podcast, of course, but still there was a lot in what you were telling, the story behind. I think it's still interesting for the people who are just listening. But yeah, if you're just listening, go check the video, because it will make the whole picture together. And wow, we're like almost hour and a half, I guess. And you said you have a project which you don't want to speak about. So we're gonna speak again on the podcast. But before we finish, I have a few more questions. Like, first of all, do you have a book, or have you considered making a book? Because you have so much work of yours. I think it's gonna be a waste if you don't put all this work in one place.
That was a problem, because I suggested the exact thing to the makers of the Lord of the Rings, and there's all kinds of legalities and weird things about who owns what, and they had, I think HarperCollins, the publishers, had a quota. They were allowed to make 20 different books, and they filled their quota, and there was no room for any more. It just became too hard, and then to make a book that gathers together all of the different films I worked for is also really difficult, because you need to get approval from this movie company and that movie company, and it just gets incredibly hard. So what I usually do is let enough water flow under the bridge and enough years go by, and then I can share them on my website, and I still haven't even put The Hobbit on my website, but there's so much more since then. But now that I've got my fledgling Instagram account started, I'll start putting stuff on there, and because it's a few years since most of these projects, so I think I don't think anyone's going to get me in trouble if I put a few images up now. It's they won't mind.
I don't think so, and I think after all, it's some marketing for them, because me just listening, talking with you on this podcast. Believe me, in the next few days, I'm gonna watch all the movies. I haven't watched them for a long time, but now that I have a different view and you showed me some stuff, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna watch the movies and I'm gonna see them in a totally different way. Wow.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay to share, and as you say, it's a win for them. It's a win for me. It's a win for the audience in general. So there's no downside. So yeah, I'll get some stuff up on Instagram and at Calligraphy Masters.
Yeah, guys, go follow Daniel on Instagram. It will be in the description. I'll start featuring some stuff on Calligraphy Masters as well. Please, guys, let's make some good following for this guy. It's insane. First of all, he's immortal, and how is one immortal not having enough followers? But yeah, I don't know. If you enjoyed listening and watching his story, please, guys, go follow him. The link will be in the description.
And you let me know if there's anything that I can do for Calligraphy Masters. Yeah, because I think you've made such an amazing thing.
As I mentioned, it would be super cool if we can do some online workshops about how to create your individual style, or I don't know how you call them. This something that doesn't exist, but you make it. You said it could be a lecture, or I don't know. I think it would be super cool if we make something like this.
Okay, sure.
And as I earlier mentioned, I would really love to have some of your pieces for my wall.
Okay, send me your address. I'll get you something to you.
Okay, if you want to say, like, I don't know, is there something I haven't asked you but you wanted to speak about it, or?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. I just use the stuff that you all use: brushes, automatic pens. I do have. I'm so old school. I do have a set of those Pilot parallel pens, but I never use them. They've sat there, and I just.
I have many more, but this is actually the reason I started calligraphy. It's because of those pens. So
yeah, it's a very cool thing that they have appeared, and I should get mine out and do stuff. But mostly I'm just dipping speedball nibs into ink, or
I dip my Pilot parallel pens because I'm too lazy to fill all the time the cartridges, but. No, you do you, like, you're doing pretty amazing. I love your work. Like, all the pieces I've seen here are super nice, and especially some of them are even more cooler, like this elvish and this like rune. Wow, this seriously, I have pain in my smile right now. I've been smiling for like hour and a half. Super happy, super nice. And okay, do you want to say something to the people who are just starting their journey, to wish them something, or just give them advice to, I don't know, whatever?
Do the thing that you have a passion for, because if you just write alphabets because you think you need to learn alphabets, then that's fine and it's good practice, but you need to, I think it helps to have a purpose, and that purpose might as well be something that you're interested in, focused on, because you always get the best result by doing something that you really want. You want to see it in real life. I want to see this quote or whatever, and you have a passion for it, then that's going to give you the best result. And it's also writing words, sentences, laying stuff that is vital to the whole calligraphy thing, because you can make don't get me wrong, alphabets a thing themselves, and it's almost like an art form itself. But to really understand how the letters all fit together, you want to be writing words, because that's what we do. Is, you know, I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head here, but I think I always get the best result when I'm doing something that I just really want to see this or that written in calligraphy, or when I'm painting something. I don't paint. I don't take anyone's advice as to what to paint. I just paint what I want to paint in the way that I want to paint it, because I think that gives you the best result. Really, is the thing that you have passion about. So do that first, and then practice the rest later.
This is a great ending. Thank you, Daniel, for being guest on the podcast. It's been a huge pleasure and a huge honor for me to have you on the podcast. And I'll be waiting for this secret project to finish and to have you again on the podcast.
Awesome. I'll look forward to it. Okay. And with our time difference, it must be time for you to get to bed, and I'll...
It's all right. I don't care. I'm gonna manage it. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, keep writing. Okay. Wow. Wow. Seriously, I have pain in my smile. Like, this has been super cool. I'm super hyped.
Good.
I'm super hyped. And, yeah.
I'm pleased to... I was so stoked to get your invitation in the first place. So